if Dr. Ford, in fact testifies on Monday, it's going to be a classic and uncomfortable case of he said, she said. There's no evidence, and the memories here are hazy. So each senator on the Judiciary Committee will have to go with their gut. And as our next guest wrote in the Wall Street Journal, that means Maine Republican Susan Collins is the one who could hold the keys to Judge Kavanaugh's confirmation. With me now to explain why, a man who worked with Brett Kavanaugh while serving as former chief speechwriter for George W. Bush. Let's learn with McGurn. Bill McGurn is here, also the Main Street columnist at the Wall Street Journal. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So Susan Collins is the key. It seems like she has way too much power nowadays.
First, I want to say I not only work with Brett, who is a fine man, I work with his wife, Ashley, and we're kind of Facebook friends, keep up on the children. This is so out of whack with what I know about Brett. He's a perfect pick for this. I focused on Susan Collins because 4 Republicans said they needed to hear more from this woman. Bob Corker, Jeff Flake, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski. Mr. Corker and Mr. Flake have said that if the woman doesn't show up on Monday, they should go ahead with the vote. Susan Collins is sort of leaning there, isn't there? I think Lisa Murkowski would go that way. They're the only ones that matter because Democrats can't. The reason Democrats are doing what they're doing, asking for a ridiculous FBI investigation that's not its job, is because they want to delay until after the election.
Absolutely.
Right? So
and if they didn't, then they would have gone to the FBI much earlier.
And they want to do that because they cannot defeat the Kavanaugh nomination. Only errant Republicans can defeat it, right?
Well,
without a Republican going south.
Yes, and if you're looking at, some of the problematic things he's written in his opinions for civil libertarians about the Fourth Amendment, that wasn't enough to turn senators like Ted Cruz and Rand Paul. If you're talking about some of the emails he might have written while he was secretary in the Bush White House, that also wasn't enough. And there were thousands of pages of documents that were turned over to the committee. So this really does seem like an insurance policy. Yeah,
it's last minute, no evidence. I also wouldn't underestimate, my impression is that Senator Grassley is saying Brett's going to testify even if Dr. Ford doesn't show up. I wouldn't be surprised that he is a very sympathetic person. I mean, he can ask them, where do I go to get my reputation back? How do I look my daughters in the face and prove that, what do I need to do to prove that I'm not a rapist or an attempted rapist?
That's a good question because if someone has done nothing wrong, what's the appropriate behavior?
How
what do you expect
to
do? Yeah, well, I mean, that's incredibly difficult. And unfortunately, the way a lot of this evidence stands, it's hard to disprove anything in this case.
I think Chuck Grassley has taken the reasonable position the woman should be heard. She has charges. She should be heard. But that doesn't give her a right to dictate the process. This letter where she's putting down the conditions, some of your other guests who have been in Congress can tell you more about that. I don't recall any witness setting conditions. I'll only do this if there's an FBI investigation first. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, and there have been people in the FBI who have said this doesn't meet the criteria for how we launch an investigation.
Yeah, my dad's a retired FBI agent. He still does some of these background things for State Department and so forth. And it's basically asking people about the person that's applied. And then at the end, you say, is there anyone else I should talk to? So it's kind of the family business. And of course, I underwent one like Brett when I went to work at the White House, and it's the same thing. It's
Judge
not
Kavanaugh
a criminal
has
investigation.
been through this process, but it's very interesting because I understand that Dr. Ford doesn't want to be up there by herself. No one wants to be a part of this spectacle. And, I understand if she wanted anonymity, that's one thing. But you can't drop a bomb on the entire situation. I'm not talking about her dropping. I'm really talking about Dianne Feinstein and expect there to be no repercussions or pushback. So if they want a trial, is it reasonable for Judge Kavanaugh to want some sort of a defense attorney?
I think we need a vote. And then, you know what? If they find that Brett Kavanaugh did this and that is criminally prosecutable, I say impeach him. But I don't think they're going to do that, and I don't think they want it. They just want to leave kind of a stink out there.
Well, if you're looking at the Me Too movement and you're looking at some of the people who've lost their fortunes and their professional, their careers It's because other people have come forward after there was an initial claim, from Harvey Weinstein to Matt Lauer to Bill O'Reilly and Al Franken. There were other people who came on board and essentially corroborated a pattern. Same thing with Roy Moore. And if you have a guy who's going to get blackout drunk and try and rape someone, it doesn't seem like that would be an isolated incident.
And would stop when you're 18, right? I mean, yes, I agree entirely with this. Look, I have 3 daughters. I have no son, 3 daughters. If something like this happened to one of my daughters, now I'd be more inclined to handle this in the private sector, having my own visit with the young man and so forth. So I'm concerned. I think the woman should be heard, but I don't think it gives her a right to upend the process and set all these conditions.
Yeah.
Senator Grassley has been more than accommodating in offering her to do it in closed doors. I think he's offered to let people go out and talk to her where she lives and so forth.
That was some of the breaking news.
It's ridiculous. Look, we have to get back to the central fact of this. The Democrats don't want an investigation. They at least don't want anything that would reach a conclusion. They want a delay, and that's what all this is about. And the question is whether she's being used by them or whether she's...
Yeah, and if she is, that's incredibly unfortunate, because now it's her reputation, not just Judge Kavanaugh's reputation. So you have 2 families who are really being ripped apart by a pretty horrific process. But we still don't know how it's going to end. Bill McGurn, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Here now, Senator John Kennedy, who is one of the 11 Republicans who sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator, good evening. Good to have you with us tonight. I want to read from the statement from Dr. Ford's attorney. Part of it says there are multiple witnesses whose names have appeared publicly and should be included in any proceeding. The rush to a hearing is unnecessary and contrary to the committee discovering the truth. Your reaction to that?
I think you have to put all of this in context. Originally, Dr. Ford wanted to remain anonymous. Then she changed her mind and contacted the Washington Post and gave them the story. Then she asked us to hold a hearing. We've agreed to hold a hearing. Then she changed her mind and said, I don't want a hearing. I want an FBI investigation. Senator Grassley, who's demonstrated extraordinary leadership, again reached out to her and said, look, we'll do it any way you want. We've have to have a hearing. That's the way the Senate works. We'll send somebody out to see you. And now Dr. Ford has changed the conditions again.
And as Ed Henry said, you know, it's the feeling on the Republican side of the committee that they're continually moving these goalposts. And I guess, you know, one of the questions becomes who gets to run this process? Does she get to run the process, or do you all get to run the process? And as you point out, you've given multiple opportunities. But is there any effort underway to bring some of these witnesses in for Monday? Is that a condition that you would consider meeting for her?
We broke Senate protocol and Senate rules to hold this hearing. The confirmation process is over. The hearing's over. The confidential meeting with Judge Kavanaugh is over. The written question submission time, over. The FBI investigation, over. All that was left was to vote. Now, we have broken the rules and protocol by having the hearing at her request.
No, I get what you're saying. I want to play this from your colleague in the Senate, Mazie Hirono, who spoke out about you and others who she feels, well, here's what she said about you. Watch.
I expect the men in this country and the men in this committee, and many of them, believe me, because we all signed on to this letter to demand an FBI investigation, but really, guess who's perpetuating all of these kinds of actions? It's the men in this country, and I just want to say to the men in this country, just shut up and step up. Do the right thing for a change.
For a change, she says. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I have great respect for Senator Hirono. I am a man, but I'm who the people of Louisiana sent to the United States Senate. If she's unhappy with that, I guess Mazie needs to talk to the people of Louisiana. In the meantime, I've got to do my job. We're trying to do the right thing. I don't know what more we can do. The goalposts, as someone put it earlier, keep moving. I'm not interested in more political or cultural combat. I'm interested in two things.
Well,
I'm interested in truth, and I'm interested in fairness.
Understood.
And we're trying. We're trying.
Understood. Joy Behar basically said the same thing. I don't know if you're a big watcher of The View, so I'll play it for you just in case you missed it.
Okay.
These people in Congress right now in that Senate Judiciary Committee, these white men, old, by the way, are not protecting women. They're protecting a man who is probably guilty. If you're not Judge Kavanaugh, take the lie detector test.
What do you say about that, Senator?
Well, I'm sorry she feels that way. I don't agree with her. Our job is to protect the American people. Our job is to advise and consent. It doesn't say anything in the Constitution about the FBI advising and consenting, or the media, no disrespect, advising and consenting. It's up to us. And we're trying very, very hard to hold a hearing as Dr. Ford requested and give her a chance.
All right, so
but she keeps moving the goalposts, and all I can say is I hope she comes Monday. I think it will be a huge mistake if she doesn't. I'm asking her if she's listening to attend. I assure her she'll be treated fairly, but if she doesn't want to attend, that's up to her. We'll even do it privately if she wants.
And we know Senator Grassley has offered for staffers to go to California and take a statement from her as well. So lots of different options. Senator, thank you very much. We'll be watching with great interest as we head towards Monday on this. Good to have you here tonight.